folks. Well, it's another experimental day in home brewing, and in this film today I'm going to attempt to make a carrot and orange sparkling wine. So it sounds a bit bonkers, doesn't it? A carrot and orange sparkling wine. I mean, who'd make that? Well, C.J.J. made something very similar to it in 1977 and put it in this book. My dad gave me this book years back. This was my dad's old home brewing book. And I was just going through, I mean, there's some cracking recipes in here. Fig and grape, elderflower and rose hip, dandelion and prune. God, there's all sorts. Rhubarb and chervil. What's a chervil? I don't know. Anyway, one of the recipes in here is for a carrot wine, which also includes orange and raisins. Now, I'm not doing the raisins in mine because I'm not keen on them in wine. So I'm just going to do carrot and orange and see how it works out. Let's see what happens. So let's have a look at my key ingredients. Well, I need carrots and I need oranges. So I've got 1.5 kilos of carrots and I've got 5 satsuma oranges. I've got dextrose monohydrate brewing sugar and I'll be using 1 kilogram from that 5 kilogram bag. I'm going to need water. I'm using spring water as the tap water in Leeds is chlorine. I am probably going to end up using 3 litres, but there are 4 litres here. My yeast of choice today is a bit of a Frankenstein. I'm using the tail end of this packet up, which is Young's Dessert High Alcohol yeast, and I'll be supplementing that with a bit of Gervin, how do you pronounce it? GV13 cider yeast. I'm going to feed the yeast with a bit of nutrient, and I'm going to put some pectolase in, and that will mean that this will hopefully be a clearer brew. I've got no idea how this is going to work out. It might be delicious, it might be awful. If it's awful, I'll just run it through the air still. Anyway, let's crack on. Because of the way I'm making my wine, the preparation is actually going to take 3 days before I add the yeast. So don't worry about that. So this is preparation day 1. And today is all about the carrots. And look at the size of that beauty. Oof. So with each of my carrots, I'm simply going to cut the top off, like so. And if the bottom's all right like that, I shall leave it like it is. If it's rooty and gnarly, I'll cut the bottom off as well. This one's okay. And then I'm just going to cut it into reasonably thin slices, like so. And then these carrot pieces are going to get picked up and chucked in my saucepan. I've got plenty more carrots to cut up, so I'll come back to you when they're all in the saucepan. Okay, that's all of my carrots in the pan, 1.5 kilos. So I'm going to add to the pan 2 litres of spring water. That's just covered the carrots over. I'm going to put the lid on at that. And it's gas on, heat on, and I'll just put that on low, and I want them to come to a simmer, and I want the carrots to boil and cook. Okay folks, it's been a couple of hours, and these have been simmering away nicely now for probably the best part of an hour. Let's have a look at those carrots. Yep, let's get that lid off. Steamy. So I'm just going to give them a prod with a knife, and yeah, they're lovely and soft. Okay, I can say that they're cooked enough. So the next thing I'm going to do is mash these with a potato masher in the pan that they're in. So here goes, and actually they're mashing quite nicely. Now by mashing them, I'm breaking them down into smaller pieces and I'm releasing more flavour out of them. Right, this is quite nicely mashed. See that? That don't look too bad, does it? But I'm going to break it down even further. So next, I'm going to spoon the mashed mixture into my blender. Right, you know what happens next, don't you? And then from there, I've got one fine carrot smoothie. I'm going to put that into a different pan. And repeat. I'll be back to you when that's done. Right, I'm just going to pour back into the original pan. It's a bit smaller, this is too big for what I need. So what I'm essentially left with is some sort of carrot smoothie or carrot soup. So I'm going to leave this tonight to sit there and infuse. Then tomorrow morning I'm going to strain it and carry on with the recipe. So I'll see you tomorrow. Hey folks, it's the next morning. Let's have a look at what we've got. So here is my delicious looking carrot puree. I've transferred it from the bigger pan into this smaller pan temporarily because I want to pour it back into this bigger pan using this filter, or using this sieve I should say, but within that sieve I'm going to have a muslin cloth which I'm currently bringing to a simmer to sterilise it. So the next stage is to drain the puree to separate the liquids from the solids. I'll come back to you shortly when the muslin cloth has sterilised. Right, I've got the muslin cloth sterilised and now ready perching over the pan in the colander. It's time for the pour. Okay, here goes, very much hoping I don't make a huge mess. Colour's absolutely fab. And that has just filled the colander nicely. You can hear that dripping through. That is basically carrot water dripping through. So what I'm going to be left with is a carrot cake in the top and the liquid in the bottom. The carrot cake doesn't go to waste. I'll be making something with that. I haven't decided what yet, but the liquid is what's going in the wine. Okay, so all I need to do now is play the waiting game. So the lid goes on the pan, that keeps any contaminants out, and it's just got to drip through. Now I'm not sure how long this is going to take to drain through, but I've got to go to work now anyway. I'll be back this evening, so I'll either pick it up this evening if enough liquid's drained through, and if I'm not satisfied, then I'll pick it up tomorrow. So I'll catch you later. Hey folks, 12-hour later update from the kitchen. Let's have a look at that carrot. And this is what you call a carrot cake. Okay, now I know, I can see from the shininess that there's still plenty of moisture in this. So I want to squeeze this rather than use it now what's in there. I would rather let this fill up a bit more and squeeze a bit more liquid out of this. Okay, so I'm going to put this bowl on top of there. I'm just going to push it down. So on top of the bowl, I'm going to put 2 kilos of water, or 2 litres of water, which I believe weighs 2 kilos. And that's now going to press this and hopefully extract a bit more liquid out of it. We'll have an update tomorrow, and at that point, I'm going to put this all together and then the brew will be going. Okay, see you then. Hey from the kitchen folks, it's preparation day 3, stroke brew day 1. It's time to get this wine put together. Right, let's have a look beneath here, and you'll see that the carrot has stuck nicely to the bowl. Plop. I was hoping to get it off in one then, but never mind. So just for the time being, I'm going to take that out of there. And here is my delicious carrot water. Now this is still going to have some sedimenty bits in it, but it's also going to be quite nutritious too. Okay, so I'm going to get my carrot puree. I'm just going to pop it into this bowl, into this plastic container I should say. And I'm going to come back to that in another film and I'm going to make something with it. It will either be a sauce, a jam, or I might even make some kind of flapjack or cake with it. It's still very moist, but there's plenty of it. So what I need to do with this juice now is bring it to a simmer. Now I need to weigh out 1 kilogram of brewing sugar. Hopefully not making a massive mess. Sometimes easier said than done. And that is 1,031 grams. That'll do. And I want to add the brewing sugar into the carrot juice. Now this will dissolve quite easily when the heat kicks in. And that's what I want to happen. And I'm just going to give it a little stir to help it on its way. I'm now going to grate a little bit of the skin off the orange just to get some zestiness. I don't want to go too deep, I don't want to get big thick pieces. Okay, I just wanted a little bit and that will do. It's just to give it that little bit of zestiness that you get from the skin. And then with the rest of the oranges, I'm now going to juice them. That's it, get all that lovely sweet orange juice out of them. So there's my lovely sweet orange juice, and that's going into the pan also. I want to give this Nice stir around. I think the brew sugar seems to be dissolving quite nicely. It doesn't need to come to a boil by any means. So I'm just playing the waiting game now. I'll come back to you in a bit. Okay, I do believe that the brewing sugar has very likely dissolved now. Yeah, I'm getting to see some steam off this. And yeah, the brewing sugar's gone. So I'm just going to take the heat off this. In fact, while I'm waiting for it to cool, I'm going to add a couple of nice rounded teaspoonfuls of pectolase into here. This should break down any pectic enzymes, hopefully, and leave me with a clearer brew. That's the theory. It doesn't always work, but I stand a better chance with than without. Right, it's time to get that wine into the demijohn. And when I say wine, I mean wine must, because that's what it is at this point. So I'm going to begin by adding 1 litre of spring water, so half of this bottle. I'm doing that because what's in the pan is still warm, and whilst it's not too hot, I'm just being safe rather than sorry by pouring, you know, something that's not cold into the demijohn. Right, that's about half of that. Now the big pour. I love the colour. It literally is carrot and orange, isn't it? It smells pretty interesting as well. It does smell carroty, but not in a bad carroty sort of vegetable-y way that you'd imagine with your Sunday dinner. Because as much as I do like carrots in my Sunday dinner, I don't want a wine that tastes like that. Right, I'll add a bit more spring water. And I've overfilled my demijohn, and I don't care. Because if it does blow through, then fine. It doesn't matter. I'll just wash it and leave it. It's fine. It might not blow through. I don't know yet. But I've got to take some out anyway to take the original gravity. And what I take out won't be going back in. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to give what's in there a stir so that the water and the must are properly mixed together, so I get an accurate reading for the original gravity. And then I'll just go like that a little bit, agitate it. Actually love the colour, completely love the colour. I won't mind a t-shirt that colour. I'm going to sacrifice 100 ml for the hydrometer tube, and that's not going to go back into the demijohn. There we go, so that has made a little bit of space at the top. Now this is currently too warm to take the original gravity, so I'm just going to pop it in the fridge for 15 minutes. Okay, I've got a fresh dry funnel in the demijohn, so I'm going to add the remainder of this dessert high alcohol yeast, which was from Young's. There's not much there. There was literally 1/3 of a teaspoon, if that. So I'm going to supplement that with a teaspoonful of the Gervin or Gervin cider yeast. And again, can someone tell me, is it Gervin or is it Gervin? How do you pronounce that? I'm just going to agitate it again. Let the yeast sink in. Don't want any sticking around the edges. And that's done that just nicely. And lastly, the final ingredient is going to be a bit of yeast nutrient. I'm going to put a nice heaped teaspoonful in, just like that. And I think that yeast is going to have a great time. Last but not least, I'm going to pop my airlock into the demijohn. That sits in nicely. And now it's playing the waiting game for fermentation to begin. Once what's in the fridge has cooled down to 20, I'll take the original gravity. I'll get back to you then. Okay, it's 20 minutes later. This is now down to 20 degrees, and you might be able to see that fermentation has already begun. We'll have a look at that in a second, but let's get the hydrometer in. Let's see what the original gravity for this is. So I'm going for wine, and I am starting on an original gravity of exactly 1.080, 1080. That's spot on. So if this goes all the way, I should be looking at between 11 and 12%, which is a healthy and respectable percentage for homebrew wine. So I've got my demijohn labelled up. You'll notice that a krausen has formed within the first 20 minutes, and that bubbling is underway. Fermentation is already happening. This is certainly one of the fastest starting fermenters that I've ever seen. I'm quite happy with that. Possibly a good yeast combination or just tons of nutrient in there. Anyway, I'll give you an update on fermentation tomorrow, and then we'll have one in a few days' time as well. We'll see if it erupts or not. Okay? Catch you next time. Okay, let's have a Brew Day 3 update. Now, I did say I was going to give a Brew Day 2 one, but I lied. You can see it's fast and furious. There's been no bursting out of the airlock. It's got a nice tidy krausen, not too big. There's lots of bubbling and flocculation and movement inside there. And I'm happy with it. That's a big tomato paste wash behind it. And a couple of clean demis here, ready for the next brews. So I'm not anticipating any problems with this, to be quite honest. I'll come back to you when fermentation has ended, and then we'll be looking towards either racking or bottling. See you then. Well folks, it's Brew Day 14 and the carrot and orange wine seems to have stopped. I think fermentation is over. I haven't seen a bubble in the airlock for quite a long time now. And I think it's now time for this to go for cold crashing. So I'm just showing you the view outside because it's pretty cold. We're in March and we're having a very cold snap. That means that if it's that cold outside, then this is the entrance porch of my house. Then it's 1 degree outside, it's about 4 degrees in here. So the cold temperature should mean that this will clear. What will happen is the material in here should sink to the bottom and the sediment line will increase, but I'm hoping that some of this stuff floating on top will sink to the bottom, but this will clear up anyway. I'll give you an example of one that has cleared up. If you look over there to the right, the skeeter pea has cleared nicely, just using this natural method and no finings. So this is where I put my demijohns in winter to clear. So I'll come back to you in a few weeks' time when this has cleared and I'm ready for bottling. See you then. Hey from the kitchen folks, with a carrot and orange wine update. This is Brew Day 41 and it doesn't seem to be getting much clearer. Let's have a look at it. Here it is. I've got it raised up currently because I'm going to be siphoning it and I need it higher than the vessel that it's going into. There's a clear line of sediment, but this haze is just not going anywhere. So I've made the decision to clear it with finings. Now this is not a decision I've made lightly because finings will likely nullify any chance of it becoming sparkling. If I'm lucky, it may still develop a sparkle, but the finings will probably drag all the yeast to the bottom. But when faced with the option of having a cloudy sparkling wine or a clear still wine, I'd rather have a clear still wine. And if it does get a bit of a sparkle, then it's a Brucey bonus, isn't it? Let's crack on. So I'm just taking the bung out and I'm inserting the siphoning tube with this black clip, which will hold it in place, hopefully just above the sediment line. Yep, I'm just above the sediment line. So I'm siphoning today into another demijohn. I'm going to let the first bit go down the sink and then we're going to go into the demi. I'll show you. Yeah, the first bit's murky, and now it's clear. This is what I've got now. I'm using an old coffee machine filter because there were some sort of bits of orange skin and stuff in there still, and I don't want any of that going through this time. So I'm just letting all this now siphon through. So while that's happening, I'm going to add clear wine finings from Young's. It's a 2-step process. Finings A, then an hour later, finings B. So in goes finings A, just a splash. Imagine a decent teaspoonful. Right, I need to let all this siphon through. I'll come back to you when it's done. That is now done, and we can see in here that the filter has done its job and kept the orange pith out, or peel. So I've got a decent, almost full demijohn down there, and then here I've got a sediment line which has got some above it, but the sediment line is uneven. If I turn it around, you can see. So I couldn't really go any less than that. So I've not really sacrificed too much. Okay, in an hour's time, I've got to add finings B. I'll come back to you then. Okay, an hour has passed, so it's time to get finings B into the mix. So I'm going to pour this now back into a clean demijohn, and I'm just pouring this time. There's no need to use the siphon tube. So I've poured half in there. I'm now going to add a few dribbles of Finings B, just like I did at Finings A, same amount, a decent teaspoonful. And then the rest of this goes on top. So it all mixes nicely together. I'm giving it some gravity so it goes in with some oomph. So I've got my carrot and orange wine back in the entrance porch. Don't know if anything's happening with the Finings or not, but we'll come and have a progress update tomorrow. Okay, this is the next morning, and I think we all need to pay homage to what a fantastic job the Finings have done. That is very impressive. So I'll be back to you in a few days' time when it comes to bottling. See you then. Welcome to the kitchen, folks. It's been a busy morning of home brewing. It is brew day 51 for my carrot and orange wine over there on the windowsill. And today it's going to be taken out of there and put into these cleaned and sanitised bottles. But let's just have a quick look at it and you will notice that it is absolutely beautifully clear. Now I'm hoping, fingers crossed hoping, to get a sparkling wine. I don't think I will, because I think the Finings will have dragged all the yeast out of it, but you never know. I'm going to give it a go. So in order to try and get this sparkling, I need to add a little bit of normal granulated household sugar into each bottle. Probably I'm looking at about a teaspoonful inside there. This is known as priming sugar. So if there is any yeast left in suspension in there, when it finds this sugar, hopefully it will have a go at breaking it apart. A byproduct of that will be CO2. Pressure will build up in the bottle, and that is what gives it a sparkle. That's the plan. I suspect it possibly won't work, but let's wait and see. So the priming sugar is in the bottle. It is time to get the bung out of the demijohn. Sometimes easier said than done. There we go. Now I need to get the siphoning tube in, and I'm controlling the depth and the position of the tube with this black clip at the top. So that's the bottom of the tube, and that is the top of the sediment line. So I need to just push this down. So I'm just a couple of mils above the sediment line. That means the first bit that comes out is probably going to be a bit murky with sediment, but that is going to go into my hydrometer tube. Let's rock and roll. Yep, a little bit of murk, but it's cleared up nicely. Hydrometer tube filled and into the first bottle. Okay, it does look absolutely beautifully clear. It's such a nice shade of whatever. What would you call that shade? It's kind of like a magnolia, but one that you can see through. What do you call see-through magnolia? Is there such a colour? Opaque magnolia. So experience tells me that I should manage to get 5 bottles out of what was in the demijohn. Hopefully just about not wasting anything really. That's the plan. And into the next one. It's always a bit nerve-wracking when you're not sure if you're going to fill that last bottle. Just got to keep wishing. There are some tiny bubbles, you might not be able to see on the camera, but there are some tiny bubbles going up in the bottle, and that can only be a good sign. So this is the bit where I'm wondering now, am I going to fill that last bottle? It's going to do it. There we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube. Tells me that that's over. And when I empty the siphoning tube, that bottle will fill nicely. Right, I've got my plastic bungs softening in very hot water. I need to get them malleable so I can get them into the bottles. If this does sparkle, they need to be bunged and caged so the bungs don't fly out. I'm going to demonstrate it right now on just one of the bottles. And I'm just doing it on one bottle because you don't need to watch me do this 5 times. It's not that exciting. But I'm pushing the bung into the bottle. It's gone all the way in. Now, if pressure builds up, that's going to go pew. So, cage. So the cage goes over the top of the bung. And then I just use a little dessert fork and then I pull it tight and then twist it and twist it and twist it until it tightens on the bottle and isn't really movable. Right, that's good. That one's in place. So that is nicely secured. I've got to do this for the rest. Catch you shortly. Okay, that's all 5 bottles bunged and caged. I'm just going to give them a little shower. Wash off any excess sticky residue. So while these are drying off, let's work out the alcohol by volume for this brew. So I've got 100 ml in the hydrometer flask. Hydrometer goes in. Okay, I can see through the plastic that this has finished on a final gravity of 0.992. That means I'm going to have a very dry wine, but that's quite an impressive finish. I need to work out the alcohol by volume for my carrot and orange wine. In order to do that, I take the original gravity, which was 1.080, put that into my calculator. I deduct from that the final gravity, which was 0.992, that's what we've just done. This equals 0.088. I then multiply this figure by 131.25, and that gives me a final alcohol by volume of 11.55%. I was going to say 11.5%. I'm very happy with that. That is a good wine ABV. So I'm happy with the percentage. I'm fairly curious as to what it tastes like. When I smell it, I am getting a hint of carrot and a hint of orange in the smell, so that's obviously a good sign. Very nice, actually. It just tastes like a bottle of wine. I mean, it just tastes like literally like standard table wine that you'd get in a restaurant. You know, the house wine of the day sort of thing. But that dryness, there's a slight dryness and almost a little bit of an oaky quality to it afterwards. This is going to be interesting to see how it pans out. I'm quite looking forward to it. Okay, I've made a basic label up on my phone. I've got this Fomemo Bluetooth printer, and I'm just going to print from my phone the label that I've designed. 5 copies, here we go. Isn't that fancy? So I'm just going to label my bottles. It's nice to do nice things and make them look nice. And that was nice used 3 times in one sentence. Right, first one on. I have another 4 to do. You don't need to watch me do that. There's number 1. I'll come back to you shortly. And there they are, like 5 Skittles. Welcome to the living room, folks. This is where my carrot and orange wine is going to condition for the next 2 months. So it's on top of my drinks cabinet. It's currently 19 degrees and we're in April, but you can see it's a nice sunny day. So we're south facing and the whole room gets nice and warm. So the conditioning process will hopefully allow this to develop a sparkle if there's any yeast left in suspension in there. It should also help the flavour to develop. So I normally give it 1 month to condition, but because I'm not expecting there to be much yeast in there, then I'm going to give it 2 months. So I'll come back to you in 2 months' time for the opening and tasting. See you then. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. This is my carrot and orange wine grand opening night. This has been conditioning in the bottle for 57 days. And I think there's a chance I might have a sparkle because I can see that the bung has raised by 1 millimetre or so. So fingers crossed. It looks nice and clear in the bottle. It's got a nice Chardonnay colour. I'm hoping it's going to taste nice. I'm hoping I'm going to have a bit of a sparkle. I'm just wanting a good all-round wine. This is a proper wine. It's 11.5%, so it's not low ABV at all. So I want it to really taste like a good dry white wine. Let's see what I've got. So I'm just using a miniature fork to open this because the cage had gone sharp and in fact has broken. 1 for the bin. Apologies for the background noise. There's a couple of yappy dogs, Bella and Buddy. They're a bit of a pain in the backside, to be honest, but never mind. Right, am I going to get a pop? I can't open it. 1 second. Right, let's try again. Am I going to get a pop? Twist the bottle, not the bung. Ooh, just a little one, and I've got vapour, and I can see bubbles are rising. That's a good sign. I'm happy about that. So let's see what this looks like as I pour it. Oh yes, I've got me a sparkling wine. I can't be disappointed when it looks like that, can I? That looks absolutely beautiful. Right, picture for the front of the video. Let's see what it tastes like. Oh, smells first. And it smells like a really good dry white wine. If you'd have said to me, have a smell at that, what you're sniffing, I would have said something like Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc, something like that. That's what the smell is. It's got a bit of an oaky quality to it. Right, taster. That is absolutely beautiful. I think this is the best dry white wine that I've ever made. I'm shocked. Carrot and orange wine. This is absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe it. There's no way on this earth that you'd ever guess that there were carrots in there. Nothing. It's got an oaky quality to it. It's a really, really delicious dry white wine, and tonight is a particularly nice warm evening in the garden, which I'm going to enjoy this. That is really, really very good. I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. It's a winner, chicken dinner. In fact, chicken dinner's in the oven. So folks, hope you've enjoyed the film. I'm going to enjoy this wine, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you very much for your support for my channel. Please leave comments, subscribe, etc, etc. It's all hugely, hugely appreciated. Thank you very much, and cheers to you all. Oh, it's good, that. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.